Okay, we are back once again. Happy to be here. So, question for you. So, we're going to be talking about football today and our love of the sport.
All right.
Spoiler alert. But yeah, so if you could have one job anywhere in the NFL, what would it be? And why, I guess. So you're looking at, I mean, you could even pick, running concessions at a stadium or something. Like, I don't care. Just something involved with the National Football League.
All right.
Yeah.
Sounds good. I think I've had that thought before, so I think I could answer to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll talk about the end of the show.
All right. Your local video store card.
A comic book in your back pocket.
Games with no tutorials.
Music you had to discover.
And drinking water straight from the hose.
These are the things us millennials remember fondly. We are the Jennings brothers.
Join us after the streetlights come on
as we race our bikes from the top of the hill
right down memory lane.
Exchange those quarters because this podcast takes tokens.
Okay, yeah, here we are. And again, we're going to be talking about, oh man, our love for football. I mean, I wore my Mahomes jersey tonight, special for this episode. I've got a Trevor Lawrence one, and I was going to wear that, but I'm like, I got to support the home team. Yeah, but golly, man, I love me some football.
Yeah, Manchester United, go team!
Yes. Okay, maybe we should clarify American football.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, go Chiefs.
Yeah. There we go. Yes. Yeah, I never really could get into. I'm going to say soccer, but the rest of the world calls it football. I've never been able to get into that sport.
Me neither.
Yeah, I'm sure there's. Yeah,
basketball.
You can't get. I can get into.
I can't get into basketball.
I can get into basketball. It depends.
I can get into baseball if I'm there.
Yeah,
like I don't really like watching it on TV so much.
Yeah,
but if I'm there, I can get into baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Basketball, I can't really get into.
Mm-hmm.
Hockey's the only other sport that I really enjoy.
Oh yeah, I mean hockey. You're in it just for like the brutality of it,
Oh yeah, it's gladiators.
Yeah, it is. It is on ice.
Yes, it's
and
football on ice.
It is exactly. Yeah, but the thing like that I think that I like about what I like about football that I like over the other sports is I can realistically watch every game of the season for whatever team I'm wanting to, watch. Like you're watching baseball, like where they've got 100 and nobody can unless
sometimes
you're retired.
They'll play 2 games in a day.
Yes. Football, 1 game a week.
Yep.
And then you got a bye week.
Give you a week off. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So I don't know. I love that I can. That I can realistically catch everything on it. But so do you've liked football as long as you can remember, right? I mean,
yeah, pretty much so.
Yeah. So like,
as a probably in my single digit days,
mm-hmm.
I don't think I acknowledged it or really recognized it. It wasn't until early 90s whenever I started getting into it, and it really came about from the that 92-93 Cowboys team, that first year that they went to the Super Bowl there in the 90s and had that that streak, that's really because growing up here in Dallas, like that was it was such a big deal, and it really got me into it for sure. So at that point, I was, we were watching football at the house, and I would watch the games with, my family, and then we'd watch some of the other games. And, that really sparked the fever for sure. And I feel like there is no football like 90s football. Like, I feel like before that, it was a little too unkempt, a little too wild. There maybe weren't enough rules and regulations in place to kind of keep things fair and even and going well. And then I feel like late 2010s or late 2000s, 2010s era, they started to get a lot of rules stacked in and a lot of things that really slow down the pace of the game and really kind of like, it's not as enjoyable, and maybe it's just nostalgia. Maybe I'm looking back on football and thinking that it was a lot more enjoyable as a kid, and I'm really just watching the same game through different lenses now, perhaps. But I feel like I enjoyed it more as a kid, but I still enjoy football to this day, and I watch it every chance I get, no matter, I don't want to say no matter who's playing, but if most teams are playing, I'm going to sit down and watch the game. But there are some teams that I'm not going to watch. Like they're either not that good or they're not that entertaining. But I mean, sometimes you watch a game and it just surprises you how entertaining the game can be whenever it's competitive and both teams are really, going back and forth with it. And it's a well balanced match. Sure. Some games you get into and it's just too one-sided, and the game is just boring. It's just not that entertaining. It's not fun to watch. It's really not that fun to watch whenever it's your team that is in this imbalance. So, for me, it was that really got me into it. I remember growing up, you seemed to be really into the Raiders for a while.
I was. And believe it, I mean, here I am, a huge Chiefs fan.
I was wondering, was that like a thing to just kind of like dig at dad a little bit, who was a big Chiefs fan, or?
Nope. It was because back then I didn't know much about football. I would watch it occasionally with dad. But I followed, I don't want to say I followed the Raiders. I would like to tell people, and I think I have before, just because I'm a little embarrassed by why I rooted for the Raiders. I used to tell people that it was because of Bo Jackson, because he was great. He played NFL. He was running back for the Raiders, and then in his off season, so to speak, he played outfielder for the Kansas City Royals, and. Yeah, so he was just an all-around great athlete. But at the time, I didn't know about him. So truth is going to be out here right now. You heard it here first on this podcast, Takes Tokens. I really rooted for the Raiders because as a kid, I thought that their logo was really cool. So that's why I did it. And you're right. Dad hated that I rooted for the Raiders because he was such a diehard Chiefs fan. But yeah, it wasn't really so. Like I rooted for them for a while. I know I had a Raiders hat, and I'm sure it killed Dad to get me that. But I started having a little more interest in the game in, I think it was 97. I've been 10 years old. I remember sitting down for the first time and actually watching a game with Dad, and it was the Super Bowl when the Packers beat the Patriots, with Brett Favre. And I just fell in love with the Packers at that point. And I think that was also around the time, it may have been earlier that summer. I don't know. Did you go with us to Wisconsin?
Yeah, that was actually I'm going to blow your mind a little bit because that was before that. It was that first year that Joe Montana quarterbacked for the Chiefs, because I remember seeing Joe Montana practicing there, because we went to the Chiefs. Was it spring training or whatever that they were having over the summer?
They were doing it with the Packers.
Yeah,
because I remember seeing Brett Favre. There was a kid there that had his bicycle, and Brett Favre was riding his bicycle around. The kid thought it was so cool. But anyway, so it must have been a joint practice or something.
It must have been, yeah. Or maybe we went to both of them. I don't, because we did go to the Football Hall of Fame. We also dipped up into Canada for a little bit. But yeah, I remember seeing, I have a photo of it. I have a photo. It's probably like a 4x5, right? And Joe Montana is probably like 2 millimeters tall on it, because, cameras back, it was like a little point and shoot camera back in the day.
Yeah.
But in my mind, you can make him out perfectly, and he's smiling and throwing the football. But he was my favorite player from that era.
Yeah.
And whenever he came over to the Chiefs, it was kind of exciting. I remember that. And he was still a great quarterback, even playing for the Chiefs and everything. I don't remember exactly how well they did with him, because I didn't follow like stats and stuff back then. But yeah, I remember he did well.
Yeah, I don't remember specifically, personally how well they did, but I think looking back, because now I'm super into football, and I'll get back to that in a second. But I remember, if I remember right, that was around the time where they kept getting to they were doing really well. They were going into the playoffs, but they kept losing to the Bills in the playoffs, I think, because the Bills went 4 years in a row and lost
early 90s,
every
the Bills
year.
were crushing everything.
Yeah. So, but I was, that kind of got me into it a little bit. I would just passively, I'd come and I'd sit in the living room, and I'd do something and I'd watch it. I remember watching the full Super Bowl the next year, I think, when the Packers played the Broncos, and Elway was with the Broncos, and they ended up winning the Super Bowl that year. And then there were several years where I just kind of fell out of watching it until high school. And I really got back into it because my stepdad, Mark, he was really into it. And I started watching things with him. And I remember specifically that the game, I don't remember who they were playing, but it was a playoff game. I think it was a divisional game. I'm pretty sure it wasn't a wild card. The Browns were in it. They were really close to winning that game, and they lost at the last second. But I was rooting for the Browns to win this game. And they didn't. But that really sparked my interest in it again. And it's really ebbed and flowed, because I fell out of it again for a while. And then when the Chiefs got Alex Smith, I got back into it. So that was a couple years before Mahomes, but I got back into it, and they were doing pretty good with Alex Smith, but they went to the playoffs, I think, every year that he was with them, but they couldn't get, to the Super Bowl. And then of course now, with Mahomes and everything, they've just been so good. And the thing is, I am unapologetically a Chiefs fan, and I know they've become basically how everybody hates them, they hated the Patriots, back in the
I don't think so.
With them. Oh, you don't think so?
I don't think so. I don't think it's that bad. No.
Well, but Kansas City, other than the Joe Montana era and way back with Lynn Dawson,
70s and all that, yeah.
No, they've had such poor teams, such poor coaching, and I'm gonna ride this out as long as we can have them be good.
Well, it's like any team, you just build up this great team over seasons, and then you ride that great team until it slowly falls apart, and then all the wheels come off at that point.
Yep.
And you basically have to just break it all down and start over from scratch, which it's that breaking it down process that takes years, and then you get to build it back up again. And some teams are unfortunate in their timing that they build up great teams at the same time that maybe a couple other teams are building up really great teams. And if that first team had just come along a few years earlier, they might have had a couple good seasons before, these greater teams came along. But yeah, like that's those ebbs and flows. I mean, right now here in Dallas, we're in one of those, like, we haven't had a good season in forever. In the early mid 2000s, 2005, 2006 era, we kind of felt like it might be coming again. Like truly, I mean, every year you come around here and they're like, oh yeah, this is our year, Cowboys year. But I feel like, that's every team. Every team's like, this year's our year. Yeah. So, but it definitely, we had like, Tony Romo, and it felt like he's somebody that's going to carry us to a Super Bowl finally. Again, like we're going to return. And then again, the wheels just fell off so quickly with it. And before you know it, it's just, and I think it's that we put these hopes and these dreams on these young quarterbacks on their shoulders. And we really pushed them to do these great things and take our team, to lead our team into the end zone, into the Super Bowl, if you will. And they just, they can't do it by themselves. No. So they need a good team around them. And if you don't have a good team built up around them, then it's just going to fall apart. And you're going to put too much pressure on that young quarterback, and they're going to burn out too quickly. And then where are you going to be left with? Not a great team.
And that's why the Patriots were so good all those years, because Brady wanted a good team around him, and he intentionally took pay cuts so that they could pay other players. And, I mean, history shows it paid off big, and
Andy Reid's done a good job of building up the Chiefs over the past 10 years.
Yeah. Yep. And I mean, and back to your point with like teams that are out there that are, they're just like, they're a year late or something, getting, I think the Bills is a good example of that. Like on paper, the Bills should be like, they should have won a couple Super Bowls by now, but it's, there's just a few other teams. Like you look at Cincinnati's really good, and of course Kansas City, all these other teams in the AFC that have built them, they're just one tier above them, and it's, I mean, they don't always, any given Sunday, I feel like any team can win. Like that's another thing that I like about the sport. Like it doesn't matter. That's the beauty of the NFL. Oh, it is. It doesn't matter how good a team is or how bad a team is. There could just be one day where the team, the 0-13 team is just killing it that day on firing on all cylinders. The refs are just
on their side, calling all the wrong calls.
Yeah. So
how frustrating is that, watching a game where the refs are clearly just making the wrong calls the whole time?
I know. And that's something like that
it's a helpless feeling.
They're continually, the NFL is continually trying to right that wrong, or whatever. But I don't
remove that human error.
It is, and you can't. That's the thing. As long as penalties are called by people, you're going to have the human error on there. And it's nice now where they're, they allow challenges on things, and they're even opening, I think they've opened challenges up a little more with things they can challenge that that they used to not be able to. But yeah, I don't know. That's just something that it does suck. It does suck because you're like, oh, this is clearly a bad call. But then you're like, does the coach really want to challenge this right now? Because they may need that challenge later, and
it's hard to tell like what's going to affect the game. Yeah. It's hard to Monday morning quarterback in the moment. So and that's something I think as fans, we need to remind ourselves of when we're in that moment where we're like, oh, what was that for? upset at the game or the coaches or the player or whatever is, hey, they're in the moment. They're doing the best they can do. Yep. We can Monday morning quarterback it on Monday morning. For right now, let's rally around our team and let's get this thing home, right?
And that's something like I get. It's easy to get irritated with bad calls, but you have to remember, like, we're seeing the replay over and over again. Like, the official has like half a second to look at that and be like, "Oh, that's a penalty." Like, which like we would suck at making calls, and we're looking at this guy like, look at this idiot. He can't even see this. Like, we wouldn't have seen it if we didn't have a replay on it. So,
absolutely.
15
times replay in slow-mo from every angle.
Yes.
Swooping cameras, panning around. We get the pylon camera, all that stuff. Pylon camera. What a fantastic addition that was.
Yeah.
To goal line calls? Oh, man.
Yep. Yeah.
Great addition.
Just all that is great. I think it would be really cool if at some point down the line they would have, because every year, every season, you'll have those multiple times in a season. It'll show, like, they'll be judging, did he step out of bounds? Did he not? And it's like a sliver, and they're looking for that little green
blade of grass.
Yeah. And if they somehow had sensors on their shoes and then right on the sideline, and it would like light up or something, if they went out of bounds. Like, I don't know.
Or even just pressure sensors on the edge of the field there that detected changes in pressure. But I guess there's so much going on there. Another player could set it off that has nothing to do with the play or his hand or I don't know, something. It's like it's one of those things. That's what we need the refs for. We need good refs for those types of calls. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So your favorite team growing up, would you say that was the Raiders or was that just a facsimile?
It was okay. As a really small kid, it was the Raiders because I liked the logo. But when I started actually watching football, I was really big into the Packers for several years. Oh, okay. So I would say Green Bay. I still like watching Green Bay. Yeah. And such a classic team.
I would agree. Watching Brett Favre play all those years, even watching Rodgers play the last 10 after Favre retired was that was great too.
And Love this last year, Jordan Love did fantastic. Nobody expected him to do well at all, and he did well. But and then so yours was the Cowboys then, right?
Yeah, definitely. It was the Cowboys growing up. That was the first team that I really started rooting for, really started liking. Close second was definitely the Green Bay Packers for sure, especially the late 90s, when you got Brett Favre coming in there and he's firing on all cylinders. Fantastic. Yep. If I'm not rooting for the Cowboys, I was rooting for Brett Favre and the Green Bay Packers there. But probably, I think around 2015, 2016, the seeds started getting sowed for Kansas City, my fandom for Kansas City returning really kind of a back to because I'm Dallas by way of Kansas City, Yeah. Like grew up here and there from Kansas City. So I really feel like I have dual citizenship, if you will, for these teams. And but it was around 2015 I started really starting to pay attention to the Chiefs. And then in 2018, I officially made my switch and became a Chiefs fan first and foremost. And
full-time Chiefs fan.
I don't know that I'm still. I mean, I'm still a Cowboys fan. I'll root for them whenever they're playing, but I'm not hoping for. I don't expect anything of them. I just want them. I'm just a liberal parent whenever it comes to the Cowboys. I just want them to find themselves. I want them to be happy and productive, and just put on an entertaining show. That's all. Be the tree. It's fine. Just be the tree. Be a good tree. Just be a good tree. That's all I ask.
Yep.
I'm going to go watch your older brother, though, whenever he plays in college bowls. And that's when I'm going to enjoy football, is whenever I'm watching the Chiefs.
So is there any team that, so like other than, so you've got Chiefs and the Cowboys, other than your favorite, is there any team you like to root for?
Oh, yeah. I'll root for the 49ers. That's my wife's team.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
She's a diehard Niners fan, has been since the day we met and since before that, and as far back as she can remember. But I enjoy watching them play too. I feel like they put on a good game. They have contender status for a while now. I really enjoyed whenever they had Kaepernick playing. I thought he was fantastic. I was ashamed to see his career ended so early, but I feel like they put on, they have a good team, and like I said, they're contenders, and it's an enjoyable team to watch. But yeah, Chiefs, Cowboys, even still Green Bay. I mean, I don't feel like Green Bay's in much of a contendership right now. I mean, they could surprise me, and I wouldn't be surprised if they surprised me, if you will. But yeah, that's kind of that's what I enjoy for sure from the game. I can't really think of anybody else that stands out to mind. I guess New York, if they're playing, I'll check in on them usually.
What, Jets or Giants?
Oh, Giants, yeah. Jets, I forget the Jets even have a team.
Yeah. They were supposed to have a good team last year, and then Rodgers played like 3 plays, and then he was out for the rest of the season. They had a really, really, really good defense last year, but their defense they could only do so much. Like they were getting tired because their offense under Zach Wilson was just doing terrible. And they were off the field in no time, so the defense was just getting so worn out. But the first half, the defense would do phenomenal. But maybe they'll do better this year with Rodgers back.
Yeah. I mean, really, truly, until like the last couple years, I haven't got to watch much football. Like, we would watch playoffs and the Super Bowl, but the regular season with the kids and everything, I just couldn't keep up. I couldn't watch it. Maybe I would get to watch a game here or there. But the last couple of years, I've been able to watch maybe a game once a week, every other week. And some Sundays we'll sit down and we'll watch 2 games, and it's great. But for the most part, the kids keep you busy. You don't really get to sit down and watch the games. And I used to record them, and I'd come back and watch them later. But once you know the score, it's not as entertaining. It's not as fun. And the score is just like plastered everywhere. So I just watch them when I can. Before we had the kids, whenever me and my wife started dating, we watched every single game that we could watch. We would spend our Sundays at the bar watching the games, like in a sports bar where you could watch every single game. And that was our Sundays usually, or at home watching the games, as many as we could. We even would chart out the week and just kind of between the two of us make picks, who do you have in this game? And we who's going to win the game? Not necessarily picking the score, but just picking who's going to win in the game. Like we kind of developed this way of doing it where we'd start the season with like 20 points or something like that. And each game you could divide your points out based on who you thought was going to win. And so you could, like, if you thought one team was definitely going to win, you could just put all your points there, but you had to put 1 point on each game somewhere. And so sometimes we'd have the same, and sometimes we'd have different picks. And we would just kind of play this game and see who could get the highest score by the end of the season. It was a lot of fun. We didn't really do it for anything other than ourselves, but I mean, for
bragging rights.
An Excel nerd like myself, it was fun to build an Excel spreadsheet around this and also sit there and watch football. So well, we enjoyed it for sure. Does your wife enjoy the game with you guys?
No, she doesn't. Landon, Mindy doesn't like watching it. She doesn't mind going and watching like a game in person, but she's just not really a sports fan. Landon occasionally will watch with me, but not too often. Um, Harper's 8, so whenever she's not that interested in it. So I am by myself in this house when it comes to football, which is fine.
Oh,
But I need to cut back. I like last year was I spent way too much time because I would we go to church, and then when church is done, I'd come home and immediately turn on the game, and I will have usually the game going, one of the games going on the TV. I have NFL Red Zone on my iPad. And then I will watch the full games that I can while Red Zone's going. And then I will watch Monday Night Football. I will watch the Thursday night game. I will watch sometimes I'll have a Saturday game. Like, I watch every possible game that I can because
wow.
I love it so much. It doesn't even have to be any teams that I have anything invested in. I just love football so much. And, but yeah,
You got me beat for sure.
I like it a lot. I like it. When I said a couple of years ago, I really got back into it, like die hard. Like, this is my jam.
All right, true test. Yeah. Do you watch college football?
Not so much, unfortunately.
Okay. Not so much, but you do?
I do watch it some. I don't watch it near as much as I do. There's too many games to watch.
I don't think you could. I don't think anybody could keep up with all the college games.
No.
That's insane.
I'll watch Mizzou play, and, I don't know, just other whatever's on. If there's something on a Saturday, I'll watch it. Like, I don't get as invested in it as I do with the NFL.
I just can't get behind college football.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that it would be really entertaining if you went to that college, but I don't go to college, so I have no investment in it. So for me, it's just kind of like, it's like a high school game. I'm not going to go watch a high school game.
Yeah.
I don't know. If my kid was playing, I'd go watch a high school game, but.
Yeah. I don't know. One thing that is kind of fun watching the college is knowing, like, okay, some of these guys are going to be in the NFL, so you're kind of have an eye out for some of those players, but I don't know.
I mean, there was, what was his name? Early 2000s, I watched UT Austin play a couple games because Vince Young was playing UT Austin, and he was really good, and it was entertaining to watch that in particular, just because I had friends that watched college football, so I was over and they were watching games, and I started watching with them, and that was entertaining. And then especially because, like, I don't know if it was the next year or whenever he got drafted pretty early, and I forget where he went, but there was all this hope behind him, like, oh man, he's going to be like the next big quarterback. I think he was a first round draft pick, and I think he was like the first round draft pick that year. And we were all expecting him to go off and do like stellar, and he did good, but like he just kind of like disappeared. I think he may have ran into some troubles. I can't remember, but he just kind of like faded away. I don't remember what happened to him. But there was definitely a lot of like, at least around here, like, oh, this guy's going to be big. He's going to go off and do. He's going to be the next like big quarterback in the NFL. But yeah, I remember watching that and enjoying it, and watching some of his plays, like his scramble plays and everything, and it was impressive and definitely like pro level. But then I tried watching more the next season, and I just couldn't get into it. It just wasn't for me.
Yeah, it's so weird. Like, you'll have some players that like excel, obviously, in the NFL.
Yeah,
and you got some that don't. And I think a lot of it is, some of it's coaching, some of it's the team that they're with. Yeah. Some of it, I think, is that I can't remember who said it, but I'm inclined to agree with it. The worst team in the NFL could beat any college team.
Okay.
Because it's guys at a professional level.
Yeah.
Whereas, college, and not to knock college football, but, only a handful of guys in playing college football are going to end up going to the NFL. They're going to be good enough to go to the NFL.
A percentage relative to the overall whole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, you may not agree with me on that. That's fine, But
no, I agree. Yeah, definitely. The professional football is way better than college football.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
Yes. But I mean, I don't know. There's, I would agree. We can put that to bed. So, fantasy football. Do you still play fantasy football?
Oh my gosh. Yes. Landon and I, we have a league that we manage.
Wait, Landon doesn't watch football, but he'll play fantasy football?
Oh, yep. He'll occasionally watch part of a game with me, but he loves fantasy football. I got him into it a couple years ago.
He's a stat nerd.
Yep. I got him into it a couple years ago because I decided just one day, I'm like, I'm going to try this out. And I got on one of the ESPN fantasy app or whatever, and you can just join a random league. So I did that, and I did terrible. But I had fun with it, and then I got to talking with him about it. And like the middle of the season, we started like a small league, and it's grown. We're actually kind of a bigger league. We've got 12 teams, so it's 12 different people, and it's a lot of fun. And that's part of the reason why I watch so much football, because I pour over that. And then I'm kind of a stat guy. I will look at I'll look and see who's playing, and so with fantasy football, if you're not familiar with it, the beginning of the year you have a draft, and you start drafting players, and I think you've got a total of 16 players on your team. You've got running backs, wide receiver. How we do it, we draft every position like on the offense that really has something to do with the ball. So you've got your quarterbacks, your running backs, your wide receivers, your tight end, and then your kicker. And
something that's scoreable.
Yes. And then we have, as far as defense goes, we just have it set up to where you just pick one team's defense, and then you just play whatever that defense is. And but yeah, I pour over.
How do you score defense?
So they score it on how many points they've allowed, or if they start out with, I think, 10 points every game. Defense starts out with 10 points. As they allow more points from the other team, then their pointage goes down. But they also gain points if they have an interception, or they have a fumble recovery, or if they score a defensive touchdown, they get 6 points. So It can kind of go up and down. So yeah, there's a lot of stats involved with it that I like. I like to look and be like, okay, this team's offense is really, really good. This team's defense is really good, but I don't think they can handle this offense. So and there's a lot of trading and dropping players, and I won the league last year, so I'm
not to brag.
Yeah, not to brag, but yeah, I my love for fantasy football is on par with my love for real football. And I tried to get our dad to play it, and he told me not so gently, no, I don't want to play that. I think that's stupid. So, okay. And then he kind of backed up, and he's like, I don't mean you're stupid for liking it. He's like, I just don't understand the stats and the enjoyment of doing all that. And I'm like, that's fine, Dad. That's fine.
I'm with him. I don't enjoy it either. It's too deep. It's too into it for me.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm a fairly nerdy guy whenever it comes to different things, but I'm finding the more I talk to people about the different things that I'm into, I'm really only surface level with most things. Like, I enjoy them for what they are, and don't care to get way too deep into. Like, I enjoy Star Wars, but I don't need to get into all the lore and different characters and backstories and what's canon and what's not canon. You know what? Just put on something, and I'm going to enjoy watching it, and then I'm going to forget about it, and I'm going to move on with my life, and I'm not going to let it torment me for however long. And I feel the same way about fantasy football. I just want to watch the game. I've tried doing fantasy football. It just stresses me out. It becomes, it just feels like more work. It feels like a job that I don't want. You asked in your cold open question, what job could you have in the NFL? That's whatever fantasy football is. That's the one that I don't want.
You don't
anything
want
to do. I don't want. That's the opposite of what I want for sure.
See,
so
for
anything
me,
dealing with that.
It makes me watching other games that are for teams that I don't really. I'm like, whatever. Like, I'm trying to think of what teams are really bad this year. Like the Giants are playing. I don't know.
The Lions, they're always bad.
Oh no, the Lions were great this last year, but
really?
oh yeah. But for the sake of the Lions were they were one game away from the Super Bowl this year.
Okay.
But
shows you how much I pay attention to the specifics.
Yeah. So anyway, like I will watch the games because I may have one of my fantasy players is on that team. And I'm like, I want to see if they can score me some more points. And it's fun to watch just for that one player. And so it fuels my addiction to football. So maybe I shouldn't play fantasy football.
I think you shouldn't gamble is what it sounds like to me.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't. We play for bragging rights. We don't play for anything else. So... Yeah.
I hear people describe fantasy football much like you have described it, and it sounds a lot like gambling addiction to me. I must admit. I think it just itches. I think it scratches a very similar itch in the brain, and I think the two are. I don't want to speak ill or out on anybody here. I'm not saying that the two are connected, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were closely aligned or happened to just share similar tendencies amongst people that enjoy those types of things. And if you want to gamble on football, that's no skin off my back. I don't enjoy fantasy football, and I don't really enjoy gambling so much. Although I do enjoy a scratch off every now and then, but that's just for fun. I like it whenever they do characters and stuff like that. That's all.
With the scratch off, you're spending like what, maybe $5-10 at most. You're not like going and blowing the whole bank, on something.
I just like it whenever they do like Monopoly or something fun. Yeah. And it's a game. That's all I look at it as. But
that's fantasy. That's just a game.
That's fantasy football. It's just a game. I can't get into it. I just don't do it. I just like watching the game. I just want to watch the game. Yeah. So 90s for me was definitely I think my favorite era of football. What was probably your favorite era of football that you've seen?
Yeah, honestly it's the current era. It's just because
you're just saying that because you guys are what three we got what 3 Super Bowls under the Chiefs now.
Yeah, but no, seriously, like I feel like today the NFL players are far more athletic than they were back then. Like,
oh well, yeah,
and they're so
highly
much fun.
Tuned.
Oh, it is so much fun to watch just these wild catches and see somebody just run a crazy route. And I don't know, it's just become it really has become just it's a science, and it's stat based. And I just, that, like you're saying, there's just an itch there that I enjoy the stats with the game. And now I love going back and watching highlights of like older football
Oh yeah.
Even earlier than the 90s, like the 80s, where there was like, it was no rules. It's like, you want to like tear somebody's ear off, go for it. You know, don't cry about it.
That's right.
You know, and you just
pick it up, glue it on, and run down the field.
Yes. And you see some of these injuries. I cannot remember. I've seen, I don't know how many times, I can't remember who it was, but there was one player, I don't even remember what the teams were. If you know what I'm talking about,
the Redskins player whose knee bent the opposite direction.
Was that it? Yes. It snapped. Yeah. And that was his last game.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know that he ever walked again after that.
No.
That was crazy.
Yeah.
His knee bent entirely in the wrong direction.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure his toe touched his stomach.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure it did. It's terrible. It's terrible to watch, but you can't turn away from it. You're like, whoa, really? And that's something, even today, I guess, they'll have the injuries on there. Unfortunately, I know they're doing it out of respect for the player, but they usually won't show the replays on those anymore.
Yeah.
You know, like,
you gotta catch the YouTube recaps.
Like, yeah. And I get it. Like, a couple of years ago, they had DeMar Hamlin, like, basically died on the field, and they didn't want to keep showing that. And I get that. Like, but when some guy just, when his arm bends the wrong way at the elbow, show me that. I want to see it. Like,
he's alive still. It's fine.
This is the United States of America's version of Gladiators. Like,
That's
I want to see some just bones
there will
breaking.
Be blood.
Yes, that's what I want to see. So I do miss that a little bit about the earlier 80s or 90s football. Yeah. It was a little rougher, and now it's like, you almost
they
can't
look at the quarterback wrong
somebody.
And they get in trouble. Yeah.
And I know they're trying to protect these quarterbacks. They're trying to keep, from concussions and all that stuff. But, like, sometimes it's just like, you got to let the guys play, and
absolutely. But I mean, that's just, I feel like that is the sport. Like, that's what they're signing up for. It's like nobody's stepping into the ring with Mike Tyson and saying, okay, you can punch him in the head, but it's only got to be so hard, and it can only be so many times, or else it's a fine and a penalty. Like, he's a boxer. He's getting into the ring. The other guy knows he knows the score. He gets it. They've signed up for this.
Yeah.
They're on board. And I feel like that's the same way with the NFL players. Nobody's under any illusion that they're going to go out there and play an entire professional career without being hit or injured.
Yeah. You have to go into it knowing I'm going to get hurt at some point. Just hopefully it's not enough to end my career.
Yeah.
But, and I get, like, late hits and things like that. Yeah, sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Aggression. There's some things. Yeah. That's no.
But, like, even when some of these taunting calls, you're like, really? Like, because he looked like you were defending me, and I outplayed you, and I got the ball, and I made a touchdown, and I look at you, and I point. That, they would throw a flag. Like, I'm serious. I've seen it. They will throw a flag for that nowadays because it's taunting. I'm like, give me a break. Like, come on.
The one that kills me, and I rarely get agreement here, but the one that kills me is offensive pass interference. Isn't it their job to interfere with the pass?
Yep.
How is that a call? I don't understand that one.
Yeah.
It just it boggles my mind.
Because
that's their entire job is to interfere with the pass. You did it the wrong way.
Like, he's trying to get the ball. Like, I don't know.
I get if you're holding him back.
Yeah.
I can understand that from behind. Fine. But, like, if they're just, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
That one kills me. And it gets called all the time.
It does. And I don't know. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that in the modern era of football that I don't like, but watching the athleticism of the players and the strategy of the coaching is so much fun to me, because it's now, you had back in the 90s even, it was like a quarterback really threw the ball. That's all they really did. Now it's like, you don't know. Like, you got to watch the quarterback could take off and run.
Oh, yeah.
And like Josh Allen will hurdle guys and keep going. Like, if you would have had him play
statues back in the day,
oh
now
my
they
gosh.
just scramble all over the place.
Yeah, and it's so much fun to watch.
Slippery. Yeah.
Yeah. It's great.
Absolutely.
Sometimes even it's like they'll hand the ball off to the running back, and the running back will pass it. Like, nobody has a set. It's almost like nobody has a set position anymore, and I don't know. That's what I like about modern.
Keeps it dynamic for sure.
Yeah.
That's definitely what keeps it entertaining for us for now. I have an interesting fact, and I don't know how to get it in here, so I'm just going to put this one out there.
Let's just hear it. Yeah.
I'm going to propose it as a question, I suppose. Do you know who introduced the score bug? The little reticle that goes in the top corner and tells you the score of the game all throughout the game. Do you know who introduced that and when?
I feel like I should, because I've watched Peyton's Places on ESPN, Peyton Manning, and he's got all the. But anyway, no, I don't know who it is.
It'll surprise you. It surprised me.
Okay.
It was actually when Fox started broadcasting games in the early 90s, they created what's called the score bug and introduced it as a feature during the game, live scores. Before that, like I think it was like 93, 94, before that season, there was no live update. You didn't know the score until they went to commercial break. I mean,
my gosh.
like, you knew the score if you were following the game, but like, you didn't, if you came in the middle of the game, you wouldn't know the score until they went to break and they announced it again.
Terrible.
Isn't that wild? Isn't that wild? I would have thought it would have come so much sooner, but like it was like 93, 94, Fox started broadcasting games, and they introduced this score bug as like one of their big innovations to the sport, and then everybody started doing it the following season and took off after that. I can't imagine watching a game now without it.
No.
That or the ticker at the bottom giving you the scores of all the other games that are going on at the same time.
Well, I think is it there's one network that doesn't do the ticker, and it drives me crazy.
Oh, really?
Like, because if I'm watching a
game. Is it ESPN? Because it's a Monday night game. There's no other games going on.
Yeah, right. No. I can't remember. There's one network that doesn't do it. It's not CBS. It maybe it's NBC does the night games. Maybe it's Fox that doesn't show it. And it irritates me because I'm looking at scores for stats for fantasy, and I can't look at them, and it drives me crazy. But luckily, most of the Chiefs games are on CBS, so I think there's like one or two games a year that they're on Fox, so I don't have to. But.
Fox has got to drop this, whatever this Transformer football player thing that they got going on.
Oh, yeah.
We need to put him to bed. He's been up there for too long. He's worn out his welcome. I'm tired of seeing him. I mean, nothing against the guy, but I know you got an art department, and they're really proud of this Transformer that you guys have built.
Yeah.
But you can put him away. It's fine.
Yeah,
we've seen him. Yeah. Let's move on with our life. I mean, it's like the Budweiser frogs. They keep bringing him back every so often. Yeah. Just leave him alone. Let him go away. It's fine. We don't need him.
Every like 3 or 4 years, they should just like rotate that out with something else.
Yeah, for sure.
So
did you see?
No, go right ahead.
I was going to say, did you see that they're going to broadcast 2 games on Netflix this year?
Yes, I did.
I think Christmas, right?
I think that's right. Yeah. Netflix. They started on Amazon Prime a couple years ago, and that's been pretty cool. Dad hated it because he didn't have
Amazon.
Didn't have any of that, and he's like, I can't watch the game. I'm like, well, I can come over.
But if it's a Chiefs game, won't they broadcast it locally?
No.
No, I thought that was the thing they had to do. Is local games we could or maybe that doesn't happen anymore.
No, it's on. Yep.
Well, so what do you do for those games?
he'd brood over it. He'd watch one of his, home improvement shows or something and just
I guess so, yeah.
find out about the score later. Yeah. See, I thought about like bringing something over and letting him watch it, but then I'm like, well, he doesn't have anything to stream it on. So, I don't.
Oh yeah,
he didn't.
I don't think he had Wi-Fi.
All of our TVs, all of ours at home have the streaming service built into the television set.
Yeah.
Like I don't have anything to streaming stick to plug in there. So
something our children will never understand.
No,
a TV that doesn't stream.
Yes,
we every once in a while that comes up with the kids where they'll be like, what do you mean you had to watch whatever? You couldn't watch. What do you mean you could only watch what was on TV at the time? Like you couldn't just watch it? No, it's like it was just whatever was on. Like you could only go back and watch things that were on tape. But yeah, it's still every once in a while it catches them off guard and they're just like, it doesn't make sense.
Yes. And you had to memorize, like if there was a show you wanted to watch, okay, it's on at 10 o'clock on Friday night.
Oh yeah.
I have to remember
you lived your life by that schedule.
Yeah.
The TV guide came out. You highlighted what you wanted to watch. You flipped to it every day. You know exactly where you're going to be.
Yeah. Or if you weren't going to be there, then you would set your VCR to record.
That's right.
Yeah.
Nobody take the tape out.
Yes.
I'm recording something today.
Yes. Yeah.
If you're going to watch a movie, you put that tape back in the VCR.
Right.
Needs to be in there by 6.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've been to some games in person, haven't you? Like,
yes,
actual live
actually,
games.
I mean, so 2005 and 2006, I think it was the last few seasons that the Cowboys were in was known as Cowboy Stadium before they moved to the new AT&T Stadium. They used to have where if you owned a box suite, you could have your own caterers come in and cater the game. Then whenever they moved to the new stadium, you could only use in-house catering. So you couldn't have outside catering come in and bring your food. So before that, my mom worked for a catering company as a chef, and they catered Roger Starbucks box seats. They catered box seats for, I think it was like 4 or 5 other companies out there, and some smaller box seats, box offices. What do you call them? Box studio box. I can't remember what they're called. Box seats. Yeah. And so I would work a side job on Sundays, going out there and helping them set up and waiting on people, getting people drinks and stuff like that. Because that's really all it was. Is we would bring pre-made food, set it out, and then do bottle service. Really, they had liquor supplied to the suites, and we were just opening things and giving it to people whatever they wanted, as they asked for it behind the bar. So I got to watch a few games like that, which was kind of nice. A couple of suites that I worked, there would only be like 3 or 4 people in there. So they're not asking for much. Yeah. You can kind of kick back and watch the game for the most part. And then the last season they were there, one of the last games, it was like sometime in December. My mom had the keys to one of the suites. She's like, I got keys to the suite. It sounds like they're not going to use it. If we want to, we can go up there and we can watch the game in the suite. And so we're like, that's awesome. So like her and my stepdad and me and my wife, we go up there to watch the game, and we get there and they decided to, like, the owners of the suite decided to come and watch the game. And so they were in the suite when we got there, and we were like, oh, but they just weren't having catering done or anything. Yeah. And we're like, oh, okay. So we got to watch it from there's like a bar like a bar for the suite owners that overlooks the field as well. So we got to watch the game from in there, which was still pretty cool. Yeah. But you're watching it on TVs because you can't really like see the field from all the way up there. Even whenever you're in the box suites, you can't see the field really from up there. You can't really, I mean, you can see it, but watching it on the TV is so much better. And so like every time I've ever been to one of the games and it's going on down there on the field before me, I look down there and I'm like, I mean, yeah, that's cool, but it's kind of like if you were watching it on TV and they show the field from the blimp that's going overhead, and you can see everything. It's exactly that.
Okay.
So it's not like and then you turn up and you look at the TV and you're like, oh, look at that. I can make out the details on the person's face. I can actually see what's going on and where, everything's at. And so I don't understand I don't understand going to watch a game in person if you're not going to be sitting in the first 10 rows.
Yeah.
And kind of off to the middle where all the action is. Yeah. And even then, once they get to one end zone or the other, you can't really see anything anymore because it's 50 yards down the field.
Yeah.
And you've got other people you got to look through and like everything that's going on. And so I just prefer to watch it at home. Yeah. But not if I got the opportunity to go to a game and it was fully paid for, I'd probably go. But I'm definitely not going to wait for it. Have you been to watch a game?
Yeah, I've been to a couple of them.
Okay.
They've all been Chiefs games. But my favorite one that I went to, so my buddy David, he was a season ticket holder. And him and another one of my friends, Matt, they held season tickets. And Matt couldn't go to a couple games. I can't remember what was going on, but he couldn't go. So Dave asked me if I wanted to go. So I was like, yeah, I'll go. And the first game was that I went to. It was the last game where Phillip Rivers played as a Charger. And it was like the last game of that. Well, it was the last game of the regular season playing the Chiefs. That was fun. Now our seats they're behind one of the end zones. So it, like you're saying, it was kind of hard to see. If they were like at that end zone, you could see everything. Oh, yeah. But like on the other side, you had to like look up at the screens and stuff. But you couldn't. I mean, you could see it, but you couldn't see exactly, the right angle of things. But that was fun because we were heckling Phillip Rivers. Not that he could hear us, but we were heckling him. And then another game I went to with him, it was Chiefs had gotten in the playoffs and they were playing the Texans. I think was it a divisional round game or was it wild card? I can't remember. But that was the game. It was, oh my gosh, it was so cold out. I've got a picture. I was looking for my phone, but it doesn't make any difference. I've got a picture. We were on TV for that game.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But they were playing the Texans in a playoff game. The Texans, like the first half, they were up like 21-0. And everyone was getting like super discouraged. There was this guy that was sitting like 2 seats in front and over from me. And he was drunker than a skunk. And he had his cell phone. Every time something bad would happen, like if the Texans scored or whatever, he was smashing that phone on the seat in front of him. He had it tacoed in half, like his phone. And there was like, in front of us, there was this guy and his like, probably 11 or 12-year-old son. And they're just kind of looking at him. This guy's like cussing and smacking and stuff. And like, I remember my friend Dave is like, he looks at the guy, he's like, because the guys were sitting in somebody else's seat that normally sat there. So he knew everybody that would see him because everyone's kind of getting, he's like, sorry, this guy's normally not here. And I'm sorry your son's having to deal with this. And, anyway, the Chiefs ended up coming back and winning that game. That was an incredible experience, just being with the crowd there, because it was just like, oh my gosh, they're going to win it. They're going to win it. And they came back from this huge deficit and they won. And it was electric in there. It's the best game I've been to. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
And what was even funner was to be able to look over at the guy that had broken his phone, and he's like staring at his phone, can't believe it's broken. And I'm like, you broke that. And they ended up winning the game.
For nothing. Yeah.
Yes.
And even if they didn't win the game,
right?
What does that serve?
Yes. Yeah. But that was a good game.
That's crazy.
That was a really fun game to be at. And then, on a non-professional level, like, Landon, my stepson plays in the band at school. So like we go to all the high school local or the home games for the high school. And, those are they're fun. It's a high school game.
I did my senior year, I did high school football games because I was the photography editor for the paper and the yearbook. So I got assigned with several of the football games to go and shoot. And that was a lot of fun to watch those games. But I think it was because I was actively looking for those moments of emotion to capture. And there's definitely, like, when people are into the game or the players are really into the game, there is an electricity in the air that is contagious. And it's whenever they're running high, it is a fantastic feeling for sure. And if you could bottle that up, man, I'd take that every day.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, I'm ready for some football this season.
Oh yeah, I am too. I'm ready for some football. Yeah.
So, any final thoughts on the game, the sport, the love of it all?
That's just a passion. It really is a passion. Like for me, like other things we talked about on the show. Clearly, I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about games. I'm passionate about movies. I'm passionate about music. Football is another passion. I love it.
Yeah. Enjoy the game. Just enjoy the game for the sake of the game. I think that's why it was so easy for me to switch from Cowboys to Chiefs. It has nothing to do with really like who's doing better or anything like that. It's just a love of the game, and it's just a lot of fun. And it's really easy to get into a game that isn't one of those teams, that isn't one of my favorite teams, as long as it is a good matchup.
Yep.
And
that's, that's something like that, I'd asked you earlier, like, is there any teams you always root for or whatever? And there's some that so obviously I root for the Chiefs. For whatever reason, I can't tell you why, I like the Jaguars. I've always rooted for the Jaguars since they, came into the league in, I think, the late 90s.
Mid 96, I think, 97.
I've just always liked them. But, like, there's other teams, like, it's very common for me every year. I will be watching a team, and I'm like, or I'll be watching several games. I'm like, oh, this team's really good. Like, last year, it was the Texans. Because they've got they got C.J. Stroud. He's a new quarterback. They've just got a lot of young talent. They're D'Amico Ryan, their coach, he's like a fairly new coach. He's a younger guy when it comes to coaches. And they did really well. And I think this year they're going to be really good. And I like seeing those teams that have traditionally not done well start to do well. And I just love watching the different athletes, and it's just, even like you're saying, even if I don't have a team that's playing that I'm rooting for, I'll watch the game because it's almost like the whole season is almost like a season of I've talked to Mindy about this, my wife. It's like watching a season of a television series, because there are you've got all these injuries that come up. You've got these trades that happen. You've got these crazy comeback wins. And it's just like, there's all this drama really that comes out of this one game, all this excitement and everything. And it's just like watching a narrative unfold. So now the conspiracy theorists can jump on board and say, well, there's a script involved, whatever. But, I don't know. I really, really love football.
I gotta say, like, whenever I'm watching those teams or those matches where it's not one of my teams, I find myself just rooting for offense. Like, whoever is on offense, I'm rooting for the offense. I want to see the score. I want to see the payoff of winning or of scoring a goal after putting in the effort. And unless it's the Patriots, and then I'm always rooting against the Patriots. But
yeah.
But yeah, that's football, man. It's just a lot of fun. And you sent that photo earlier about the movies that you found at a garage sale recently. You picked up some DVDs, got a good deal on them, and I've never seen Remember the Titans. So I think that's what we're going to do next week is Remember the Titans. Because I've never seen it, so I'm going to watch it for the first time. You've seen it before. You're going to rewatch it, and then we'll get together and discuss it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
And with that, we've reached another checkpoint, my friends. Sharing is caring. Reviews help a lot. And keep those tokens ready. Until next time, or right after this break.
Right after this break, yeah. This Podcast Takes Tokens is a Clay Street production. Okay, now back to our icebreaker question that I proposed to you at the beginning of the episode. If you could have one job in the NFL anywhere, from like ticket sales all the way up to, coach or whatever it is, what would your job be?
I think for me, not really giving this much thought. I think the person that creates the highlight reels for the team to rewatch. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Being the archivist, somebody that handles the team's video archives or editing together those highlight reels of other teams or of the team they're about to play, or maybe even scouting reports for potential players. I'd enjoy that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that would be fun.
How about you?
This would also be my dream job. I've told Mindy if we ever have an unlimited amount of money, I'm going to buy a football team, and I will just be an owner, and I will hire a manager and help with just whatever I need to. But just to be an owner would be great. You get to go to every game. You get to go to the home games. You get to go to the away games. You'd have great seats. You'd get down the locker room. You could talk with the guys because you own the team. You're paying them. So by God, I can come and talk to you if I want to in the locker room. I can go down the field if I want because I own the field. I can, I get to go to the Super Bowl every year. I get to have input on rule changes. Yes, I would want to be an owner, hands down, no doubt about it. It'd be so much fun.
All right, you could be an NFL owner, but it has to be for the Miami Dolphins.
Doing it. I don't care what team it is. I don't care what.
What's the worst team that you? What's the team you would least like to be the owner for?
Oh my gosh! Right now, it's probably the Browns.
Nah.
I love the Browns. I've always wanted to root for the Browns. I've got a hat in the closet that's a Browns hat, but I am not a Deshaun Watson fan, and I think he's creepy, and I just don't like the guy. And but if that was the only team to to buy, then I guess I'm buying the Browns. Yeah.
All right. Well, next time we get, I don't know, $500 billion together, make your dream come true.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, all right. So that's a good cold open icebreaker. Enjoyed that. But we got a couple Spotify comments that came in.
do.
I thought we should address before we wrap this episode officially. 2 more comments came in, both of them from our guy, Fozzie Guy. Fozzie Guy commented on our Jaws episode. We had the cold open question. And just before I get into this, for anybody who's interested, before on Spotify, the way it worked was we could fill in a blank and ask you a question that you could answer in the Spotify app, or we could create a multiple choice question, a question with multiple answers that are pre-selected for you to answer. So we could either generate a question that is open-ended and you can fill in a blank and answer it any way you want, or we could generate a question that had a multiple choice that we picked the options for. Well, Spotify kind of changed it up on us, and they removed that open-ended option. And so now the only way it works now is you can either create a multiple choice question where you define the answers for the person to fill in, or for the listener to select from, or it's just a blank with no prompt, and the listener can submit a question or leave a comment. It's really a comment section in Spotify for the individual episodes. So we will no longer have a question on the individual episodes going forward. We're just going to leave that open-ended comments section open and hope that you join us in the future with answering that cold open question in the comments section. And Fozzie Guy has taken that upon himself, and that's what really has inspired this for me, is making that open-ended question our cold open question for you to answer. So with that, on the Jaws episode, we had the cold open question: if you could remove one thing from existence, what would it be? And Fozzie Guy answered, I would find out all there is to know about Bitcoin and then make it so that it never existed. And then I'm going to create Bitcoin. So a little bit of a loophole there.
A little bit of a loophole. Yeah.
But I don't know, man. Bitcoin, that seems kind of tricky. That seems like a lot. It's an undertaking.
It's dropping right now, isn't it? Like,
maybe, yeah. But I mean, I guess if you get on at the beginning, you'd be set. Especially if you got them early ones.
I have to make a confession. I know I'm familiar with what Bitcoin is, but I don't really know how it's used.
Have you ever played a game that has in-game currency?
Yeah.
That's it. Basically.
Okay. So it's just like a secondary, like a digital currency.
It's digital currency with nothing backing it up. At least in the game, you've invested money.
Yeah.
Into Bitcoin era. In Bitcoin, there's no investment. I mean, there are people that buy it for real world money, but theoretically, you don't have to. You can generate it through whatever complicated procedure there is for mining
I've heard about
Bitcoin.
Yeah, I've heard that.
But there's nothing backing it. So it's got as much value as, say, Roblox or Fortnite loot crates.
So how do you make money with it then? Like,
if you could mine it, then you could turn around and sell it for real world money to people that are willing to pay you money for it. It's essentially like if you came across, I don't know, Club Penguin bucks, and somebody wanted it and was willing to pay you for it, you could give it to them, and they could buy it off of you. Okay. It's like anything in our economy. The value is whatever people are willing to pay for it.
Okay.
And that's just what it comes down to.
So can you buy things with Bitcoin online then?
You can if they accept it, but there was a point where more and more places were accepting it. Like you could use it in PayPal. Like you could buy Bitcoin on PayPal and you could pay for things with it. It was becoming that mainstream. But then it just kind of, a few years ago, it seemed like it crashed out and everybody just backed off of it and people stopped supporting it in a lot of places. I remember whenever we went to Vegas the first time, they had machines where you could buy Bitcoin and it would print you out a little receipt.
Wow.
And you'd have, your Bitcoin number or whatever it is there. For whatever reason, I don't know why you'd want to buy it at a Bitcoin ATM in the middle of a McDonald's in the middle of Las Vegas, but you could have. It was a thing. But yeah, like it's one of those things it's only as valuable as people are willing to invest in it.
Okay.
And
Fuzzy Guy likes it. So
yeah, Fuzzy Guy, I mean, that's a smart idea. Yeah, definitely. Like if you could create it, there was a guy back in the early days of Bitcoin who spent, it was like, I think some pizza place accepted Bitcoin and he spent hundreds of Bitcoin on a pizza because it was worth like pennies at the time. So he had to spend like all his Bitcoin on a pizza, but it was all Bitcoin that I guess he mined or something like that. So it wasn't really worth anything to him either. And so he basically traded it for like $10. Well, fast forward like 10 years later, and that Bitcoin that was worth pennies was suddenly worth like $40,000 each.
Oh my gosh.
So you got to imagine, yeah, like if you could invest early whenever it was worth pennies and then turn around and sell it whenever it's worth tens of dollars or thousands of dollars or whatever. Yeah, there's your.
Yeah. Wow.
But yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, don't invest in Bitcoin. I would not recommend it.
Fuzzy Guy, I admire the idea. I'm sorry, I just don't understand Bitcoin. I've never used it, but thanks for commenting. I appreciate it. So.
I don't think most people understand Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And Fozzie Guy, I feel like he would spend a lot of time trying to figure out Bitcoin. But if you want to be the one to invent it, go for it.
Yeah.
I say go for it. I mean, it caught on. People invested. Anyways, so Fozzie Guy also answered our cold open from The Mummy.
Okay.
I can't remember exactly what the cold open question was, and I just copied this over before we jumped on, so I haven't had a chance to go back and listen to the episode. So context clues, you're going to help me remember the question.
Yeah.
I think it was our time loop question about living from 15 to 50. In a perpetual time loop.
I think that's right.
I don't remember the rest of it. There was like another component to it. Would you rather type of situation?
Yeah.
And he answered that he would like to live in the time loop from 15 to 50. However, he says, I feel like He says, I feel like you played it safe with your answer on the topic. Yeah, when things would happen in your life, but I feel like knowing certain things I know now, I would make a few better choices. Like I wouldn't blow my entire paycheck on my first job. I wouldn't blow my entire paycheck at my first job on anime and video games all the time when I was younger. I would save it and buy stocks when a certain company came out, or as soon as I had enough money to do so, I would take some risks and see what happens. I agree. I feel like that was kind of along the same lines of my plan is study the stock market, study maybe some, the lottery would just be a good trigger to some copious amounts of cash early on, but then definitely like investing in stock markets and, different companies and things like that as they come up to grow that wealth. Of course, you have to start it over again at the age of 50, which would be that'd be kind of irritating to get, 35 years? You'd spend 35 years building up all this wealth only to have to like kick it back down and start over.
Yeah.
I feel like after a few, talking about it now, after a few times through the loop, I feel like you'd kind of, money would become meaningless. Like almost, it would just be like, what's the point? Maybe you'd focus more on happiness or fulfillment in some other way.
I could see like figuring out like, okay, I know like you're going to end up remembering after a couple loops what a certain lottery number is for, like the $3 million jackpot or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You get yourself enough money to live that next 35 years comfortably, or be able to do what you want to do without having to work. And then you go and you spend that time, unless you find joy in working, you spend that time doing something that brings you joy. So, I don't know. That's a good point.
Can you imagine you're living through this time loop? And every time you go through the time loop, you go through and you find your wife and you guys start living your lives together and you living this comfortable life and you're like, hey, you've always wanted to go to, I don't know, Paris. Let's go to Paris. You take her to Paris the first time. Ooh, it's wonderful. It's exciting. Y'all are having fun. Then the second time, you're like, yeah, okay, that was a lot of fun. But she's still, ooh, wonderful, exciting. We're having a lot of fun. And then by like the 10th time, you're like, yeah, okay, I've done Paris. We're good. Yeah, Eiffel Tower. Got it. Louvre. Okay, whatever. Move on. She's like, ooh, exciting, fun. First time. Aren't you having fun?
So much fun. Yeah.
No, I've seen it before. When did you see it before? I mean, it's, on TV. I don't know.
Yeah.
It'd be hard to maintain that same level of excitement every time you did something for the quote unquote first time.
That's true. Yeah. You just have to take her somewhere else
every time.
Yes.
Mix it up every time. Go somewhere new. Yeah. And then maybe after a few, 15 times or so, go, okay, now we're going to go back to Paris. What do you mean go back to Paris? I mean, we're going to go to Paris.
We're going to go to Paris.
Don't you remember we did this before? Oh, no, you don't. That's right. I would need a companion. I feel like I need a companion for this.
Yes.
Somebody who's in on it with me.
Yep.
Because it would be it'd be very lonesome. It would almost be like the living forever thing. I think that was the other component of it, is you could live forever at your current age.
Yep.
Yeah. Which, again, would be lonely and isolating. And but you just don't know what's coming is the only caveat there. But so that's our Spotify questions. That's our episode for the week. It's a lot of fun. Looking forward to doing a movie again. I feel like the movies are much easier. Just watch a movie and then talk about it.
Yeah.
This one took a little more prep work.
Yeah. I don't know. I felt like it. This episode's more off the cuff, I guess. You know, we're just kind of talking.
It's more exciting for sure.
We had a few talking points, but we just roll with it. But I don't know.
So y'all have to let us know if this was enjoyable for you as well, as much as it was for us.
Yeah. Let us know. Yeah, let us know in the comments. Just anything. If you just want to tell us about your day, throw it in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.
All right. Till next week.
Next week we will talk to you guys then.
Later.